Hi there, everyone. My name is Euan MacLean, and I am the principal of My Online Schooling. I'm delighted to be joined today by Catherine Whitaker, who is the CEO of EtonX. Welcome, Catherine.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role within EtonX?
Yep, absolutely. So, as you said, I'm CEO. I'm also head of learning. So, I joined as head of learning almost 6 years ago, almost at the start of EtonX's life. And what we do is we are a branch of Eton College. We're their wholly owned educational technology subsidiary, and we produce online courses for 21st century skills development for teenagers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And it is great that you've mentioned 21st century education, because that's something that we're really going to talk about during our Q&A today. So the first question that's on the agenda for today's discussion is one for myself, and that's talking about why My Online Schooling is partnering with EtonX. So yeah, I'm sure you'll touch upon this a bit later, but My Online Schooling really shares the values of EtonX, and EtonX is providing pupils with online skills and communication courses to young people all over the world, and has a kind of similar model to My Online Schooling. I think we both share the real world skills, or teaching of real world skills to young people together with their academic studies, and it aims to ensure that pupils are prepared for the future. We're both very aware of the 21st century being this ever-changing world, and it's really important that pupils are developing skills like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and that's going to help them to succeed in further study in their lives, and then also in the workplace as well. So as I said, I think My Online Schooling definitely share the goals and visions of EtonX in terms of preparing pupils for 21st century education, and to make sure that pupils have the opportunity to thrive in the dynamic 21st century.
Yeah, and actually what's really interesting about both our models as well is that in addition to developing those skills, which are really important, I think the way we do it is also helpful for students. So both My Online Schooling and EtonX work globally. So in a given class, you're going to be working with students from different locations. And I think that's a really important part of working and living in the 21st century, is that global interconnectedness. So I think we do that just in the way that we operate. And I think also the rest of the world is kind of catching up with us, because we were all doing this form of education long before COVID came along. But I think what the rest of the world has begun to understand is that ability to operate virtually is actually really important, and it became really important during the pandemic, but it is a reality of life. And if you can forge relationships, build rapport, and operate globally online, then you're already doing very well. You've already made that transition to what the world's turning into.
Absolutely. I think we definitely had real benefits to being prepared pre-pandemic, and I think you're absolutely right. Online education is the future, whether that be choosing to be there fully online, or whether it's part of a hybrid model. And I absolutely agree with you. One of the best things about being part of an online learning organization is the internationalness of the classes, and you can have, in a classroom, a pupil from 10, 15, 20 different countries potentially, and that's one of the things that I really love about our classrooms online. So for me, for My Online Schooling, a 21st century education is one where young people are celebrated for their personal strengths, their talents, their abilities, and where a child's success is looked at more holistically, rather than solely looking at grades and attainment, and that learning is really centered around the young person, and as I said, what their strengths, talents, and abilities are, and that pupils have got the opportunity to collaborate with other people in their learning. I know that this is something that's really prevalent in EtonX online sessions, as well as our own sessions at My Online Schooling. There's opportunities for pupils to discover information, to work together, to piece it together, and then to try and construct meaning from what they've discovered. I think it's really important with a combination of my online schooling classes and also the sessions that EtonX offers, that it helps us to help young people respond to societal changes, technological changes that are happening in the world. And I think we're really, doing a really great job of helping young people to build the skills that they need. What does a 21st century education look like to you, Catherine?
Well, all those things that you've just said. And I think just to amplify one part, I think one of the key things that we try and do with our approach in our courses is also to make that point that we're not preparing students for an end point of an exam or a grade, because obviously that's a snapshot in time. Things can hinge on that, but actually, if you're taking a longer view of what education is for, it's really about giving you the tools to succeed beyond that cutoff point. So I think the skills and that approach that you talk about, finding your voice, being able to contribute, being able to work together, being able to work with different nationalities, people in different contexts, those are all really important things which will help you when you get to university, or if you enter the workplace, or just to live a fulfilling life. And I think taking that view that education is about building the whole person, and not looking at an outcome in a few years' time, but looking much further ahead is something that we're all about as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And preparing young people to be responsible members of a global community and helping them to be able to effectively contribute to the world around them, and also helping them to try and discover more information about the world around them. The internet allows them to do that faster than we've ever been able to do before. And also one of the real benefits about being online is we're able to embed those digital literacy skills as well, for young people, which is really fundamental for success in the 21st century, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the biggest difference here, because I was educated in the 20th century, and the biggest difference is that if it wasn't in the book, then you weren't going to find it anywhere else. So now we were so focused on knowledge and on memory, and yes, we developed some academic skills, some critical thinking skills, but there was no sense that the information is all out there, and it's about how you find it, how you treat it, how you interrogate it. We just didn't have access to that it can be overwhelming amounts of data, and of course things are just changing so fast. And I think the other thing, and you touched on it just then, which is a very big change, is that I think we're relying on this generation to solve some of these really difficult problems. And I certainly didn't leave school feeling that I was going to have to try and do something about climate change, or we're becoming far more aware of inequality, and obviously pandemic has showed us all that life can change very quickly into something you haven't seen before. So I think this generation have got some interesting work to do ahead of them. So we need to equip them for that.
Absolutely. I think you're right in terms of building up these critical thinking skills. I know that schools all across the world try to do this, and EtonX offer specific critical thinking sessions for young people as well. But with the internet and ever expanding amounts of information out there, it's really important that, as you mentioned, pupils and young people are prepared to kind of critically think and analyze what's out there, with climate change, with the event of the pandemic, and the information that's online about these topics. Pupils have to have the skills and the knowledge to try and think about whether different sources are true and where they've come from. Absolutely. So my online schooling are proud to be working with EtonX at the moment. We're currently offering the entrepreneurship course and also the resilience course for our young people, and we're hoping to open up the number of courses both self-study and live sessions as we go on through the school year and also further academic years. Would you like to tell us a bit more about these specific courses and the skills that they'll provide young people?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, resilience and entrepreneurship are the two courses that my online schooling students are studying at the moment. Resilience has a lot in it. We look at self-awareness. We look at identifying and harnessing strengths on an individual basis. We help give students some techniques for dealing with stress, for gaining self-control, for dealing with limiting beliefs and negative thinking habits. And we also look at growth mindset, so how to view failure and learn from it. And then we look at building connections, because obviously having a network and having people around you to support you are really important. And part of that is developing empathy and gratitude. So I really love the resilience course, because it's one of those skills that we have a course for where people often say, can you really teach that? Can you really learn that? Isn't that just something you have? And I think all those techniques I just touched on, and some of the attitudes, they absolutely are things that you can open students' minds to, give them a few techniques, give them a few chances to think about how to implement that in their own lives. And it is something that can form a course and can provide the start of building that skill of resilience. That attitude of resilience. Entrepreneurship, quite a different course. Another favourite of mine, because I was very involved in the syllabus design for this one, having worked in the startup environment. I took particular interest in this one. First of all, we are taking students from the way of thinking of a business idea, coming up with a business idea and testing it out, through to pitching it. Mm-hmm. So it's the sort of start of the entrepreneurial journey. Mm-hmm. So we asked them to look at how to identify opportunities and ideas. Then we encourage them to sort of find something that they want to put to the test. So they start to research the market for that potential idea. We give them some tools for validating some of their assumptions around what will work and what won't. They create what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. Mm-hmm. And then they test it to the point of deciding whether they want to stay with that or whether they want to pivot. And once they're sort of firm in their idea for their business, they pitch at the end of the course. So it's very much a process, that particular course, but we do give students tools along the way, which are quite useful and transferable skills. So we, for example, introduce them to convergent and divergent thinking, which is an ideas generation tool, which you don't have to use just for generating ideas for business. It could be coming up with ideas for a project at school or for essay writing. It doesn't have to be just for business.
Mm. It really does sound like in the different courses that there's a lot of transferable skills there. I think with like resilience, there's always there, in the world, everybody needs a bit of bounce back ability, yes. And a lot of people don't learn that until something significant happens in their life or something quite negative happens in their life, and it's something that almost like there's an element of having to learn the hard way about that. Mm. And it's great if we're able to kind of like instill skills or mindsets or ways of thinking about things earlier in young people, so that when they do come across challenging situations, that they've got a bit of a mindset or attitude or ways of dealing with that without maybe having to learn as hard a way if they didn't have those skills already.
Yeah, and then for the entrepreneurship course, what I'd say is that it's people tend to think of entrepreneurship as something you only need if you're going to set up your own business and you're going to go and get funding and you're going to try and be the next Silicon Valley multimillionaire, billionaire. Actually, entrepreneurship is something that works in all sorts of contexts. It could be in a much larger organization. It doesn't even have to be in a commercial organization. I think entrepreneurism can be useful in education, thinking of new ways of doing things. It can be useful in sort of public settings. it's not, I think it's very wrong to think about it as something that you would only need if you've got a burning business idea and a great desire to be the next Elon Musk. There are very few people like that in the world, but there are lots of people quietly coming up with, implementing, trying out new ideas in a way that's still entrepreneurship, but not labeled as such often. But I think in general terms, we get a lot of very positive feedback about the experience, about our virtual classroom, and about the accessibility of our tutors. And they often talk very much about the supportive nature of the study group, because the students study all the way through the course together. So those bonds form, and that's a very supportive environment. So we also often hear about students developing more confidence. Some of the things that we're talking about are not easy to develop, and maybe a student's chosen a course because they feel there's a gap there that they want to fill. And once they begin to see that there are tools and techniques that they can use, and they begin to start using them, then that confidence grows. We're always really keen to stress that a lot of these skills are things that you're going to be working on your whole life. And what we're doing is we're starting you on a journey, and therefore we're always really pleased when students say, I've already started doing this, or I can see a way that this is going to help me in the future. And we have a lot of feedback along those lines. In terms of the specific courses that we've been talking about, the entrepreneurship course, often people are very pleased that it's given them a different outlook, a different mindset to approach ideas in a different way. So they're taking those transferable skills that you mentioned and thinking of ways of applying them. And then with resilience, students often talk about having bad habits, sort of understanding where bad habits develop and how they can deal with those. And they've also talked about how useful it is for seeing their way through potential obstacles in their future. A lot of the feedback around resilience is quite future focused, which is great.
Yeah, that's great. I really like the flipped learning model as well that you have in your courses, and pupils, doing tasks between the sessions, so it's not just only think about EtonX sessions when you're actually in the live sessions, and there's that kind of continuation of the sessions between the live sessions with the tutors as well, which is great.
That's right. Yeah. So the way that works is that we ask students to do some work before class. So when they come into the class, that's very much a time for practice. It's a very interactive experience as a result, because the tutor is there very much to facilitate, not to do very much of the talking, because we're hoping that students have come in, they've met some of the tools and techniques, they've seen some examples of good practice or implementation, and really the class time is their chance to put that into practice. We also tend to work in very small groups, so the class sizes are only up to 8 students maximum, but actually within the class, students are going to be working often in much smaller groups of 2 or 3 students in breakout rooms, and the tutor will sort of drop in and monitor, but they won't be in a sort of big class whole group discussion very much of the time. So they get a lot of attention from the tutor. They really get to know the fellow students, and that's why we get that feedback around feeling very supported and feeling that they've got a lot out of the course.